The Filmmakers Podcast is brought to you by our supporters on Patreon. Subscribe for regular bonus content and special episodes.
The Podfix Network. Hello and welcome to episode 274 of the Filmmakers Podcast. This is a podcast where we talk filmmaking, from indie film to studio films, and everything in between. How to get them made, how to make them, and how to try not to F it up. In our very, very humble opinion, I'm Giles Alderson. I'm a writer, director, and I'm a producer, and I'm delighted to welcome onto the show today the fantastic Kate Dolan. Now, Kate, if you don't know, is the director of the fantastic You Are Not My Mother, which is out now. She graduated from the National Film School in 2012 and then directed many commercials and music videos, and then was selected by Berlinale Talents in 2014, where she wrote and directed the short film Little Doll. That film premiered at Berlinale in 2016. Kate's next short film, which was funded by Screen Island, was called Cat Calls, and it premiered at many of the leading international film festivals, including BFI's London Film Festival, Fantastic Fest, Fantasia Festival, and it won Best Short at the Young Director Awards in Ireland in 2018. Kate was then chosen to take part in the Guiding Lights, UK's leading mentoring scheme for filmmakers, and in 2019 was listed as one of Ireland's leading emerging creatives under 30. And now, Kate's debut feature film, You Are Not My Mother, is available now. It is definitely all about the journey. Don't expect feature films to fall in your lap. You have to work hard. You have to develop skills, and you have to find the right team. Her film, You Are Not My Mother, is creepy. It's unsettling. It's a psychological thriller, deeply rooted in Irish folklore. It debuted at the Toronto International Film Festival to great acclaim, and then it played at Fright Fest in 2022. The film stars Carolyn Bracken, Paul Reed, and Hazel Dupe. We played the trailer in the episode, but do seek it out. Do watch this film. It's a debut movie, and it is stunning. We dive deep into that. We talk about what's it feel like to have the movie coming out now, and putting together the crew of people at the same stage in their career as she is. We talk about films that inspired her, doing different jobs, how she started out as an art director, and how she learned from others on set. And we talk about what it's like working with kids and how to give clear directions. We talk about her short film Cat Calls, how it got her an agent, how it worked as a calling card for her, or did it? We talk about the writing process and why building a relationship with your actors and crew is hugely important. That is all coming up for you on this week's episode of the Filmmakers Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Honestly, it does mean the world to me that you're listening in your thousands every week, and you give so much amazing feedback. Please give more. We want to learn, we want to grow. It's only episode 274, for God's sake. We want to learn more. What more do you want from us? What more do you want to learn? Tell us. Reach out to us at FilmmakersPod on Twitter. Our Instagram is going really well as well, the Filmmakers Podcast. Reach out to us. Tell us what you want. Ask us questions. We're here to help you. It's fascinating. We've done 274 episodes. It seems so quick. It's like, oh, another one's out. And maybe you feel that too. Maybe there's too many and it's hard for you to catch up. But I suppose what I'm getting at by that is that time goes past so quickly and it can disappear. The time of you wanted to make a film, it's another week now. What have you done since last week's episode with Peter Pock and his amazing film X, which is out now in cinemas, by the way? It's incredible. How incredible was Peter? Kate is just as amazing as well. But look, time's just gone. Whole week. What about the week before with Sonia O'Hara? That's 2 weeks. What have you done to get your film made in that time? Because it's another wasted week if you are not doing something about it. Getting your film made. You know, if you're just starting out in this industry, or if you've made 2 films, 3 films, 4 films, doesn't matter. You might have wasted this week because you're sitting back on your laurels, because you're thinking, oh, they should come to me now. No one comes to you. You've got to push hard. I'm saying this to myself as well, and I do push hard, but you still got to do it. You still got to believe in yourself and get people interested in your film. Why should they make it? Why should they spend all their time and effort making your film? You've got to convince them, and by doing that, you've got to reach out. So be brave. Make it count. Get on set. Learn. Reach out. Make shit happen. Make your damn film. So thank you. So, sometimes it just needs to be said, right? It's great you listen to this. It's fabulous. But I love it so much when people reach out and say, hey, I've now just gone and made my film because I listened to some episodes and it inspired me to do it. Do the same. Email me and say, hey, I've just done this. thefilmmakerspodcast@gmail.com. Link to that and to everything else is in the show notes. Join the tribe. That's how you grow. That's how we grow. So some shout outs for people who've been amazing online in the last couple of weeks. Isabel Pratt, she brought some of our merch and she's been wearing it everywhere. She's fantastic. If you haven't seen our merch, go to our website at filmmakerspodcast.com. Check out some t-shirts, some jumpers, some hoodies. They say choose film on it. It's cool. There's some other designs on there, mugs, whatever else you need. Actually, if you want something else, let us know. We'll design it and put it up. Other shout outs go to Mark Hampton, Rob Hagans, Rob Warsey. He let us know he sold his film Among the Living. He will be on this podcast very soon when it is released, and he'll be telling you all about how he made that. And a huge shout out goes to Lee Hutchings, who was our latest Patreon subscriber. We're getting so many more of you. I think the episode with myself and Phil as a special we put out on Friday. If you like that, we're doing more of that. So come join us on the Patreon. Link to that is in the show notes. So much bonus content coming your way. Right, enough of me wittering on and trying to inspire you in some way. Here's Kate Dolan to do even more. If you don't want to go out at the end of this episode inspired to write your script, to reach out to someone, to be brave, then I don't know what will. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this week's episode of the Filmmakers Podcast with the rather delectable Kate Dolan. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Very good.
Excellent. You know, your debut movie, You're Not My Mother, is out. How does it feel?
Yeah, it's kind of surreal, isn't it? It's like, because we made the film for like next to nothing and shot in COVID, and loads of people working on the film, including myself, who hadn't really done feature films before. So, you know, it's just like kind of mad to have this like such a great response. Like, we've got great reviews and it seems to be going down well. So it's just like kind of bizarre.
It's bizarre, but it's a really weird feeling, right? Because it's, oh God, my film's coming out amazing. But then also that worry, isn't there? That is, shit, everyone's going to see it.
I know, yeah, it's weird. It's like, I think I sort of like relaxed when we got we got a couple of good reviews when it got released in the US recently.
Yeah.
And then we got like certified fresh and Rotten Tomatoes. And I was like,
woohoo!
Okay, now I feel like there's enough people that like it that even if some people don't like it, I'm not going to worry too much about that.
That's good. That's good, because it's that thing where you then start looking at reviews and it kills you. It's really weird. It doesn't matter how many great ones you get. You always look at the ones that aren't great, and they're the ones that really seem to dig in and hurt. And oh man, so fuck those guys.
Yeah, I know. It's funny. It's like, because you know, it's when you make a film for like this little budget and like, you know, with not much, like so many creative compromises you had to make along the way. Like, we couldn't afford a Steadicam tracks. We couldn't afford anything like that, or like a drone, anything. So like, you know, yeah, if you see a bad review and they're like, yeah, it seems really restrained the way it's filmed or something like that. And you're like, yeah, because I literally couldn't afford anything.
It's so true. Funny. But yeah, no one seems to care about that. You know, they put it in exactly the same league as the Marvel movies or whatever. Yeah. And that's the thing people sort of don't realise when you're making indies. They go, but bear in mind, we made it for nothing, or we made it with my friend's garden, or we made it for whatever grand. Yeah. People don't care, and that's a shame, because you go, no, but please do. Yeah. It's rough. You mentioned there that you made it with a lot of sort of, I suppose, inexperienced crew, if you like, or people who hadn't necessarily made features before. Had you worked with a lot of your crew before? Had you sort of with your shorts and stuff like that, or were they all kind of, you all just got bundled together and gone, oh gosh, let's see if we can make this work?
Yeah, some people I'd worked with before. Nari and the DOP, we'd worked on a couple of commercials. The editor of the film is my best friend since we were in college.
John Cutler.
Yeah, John Cutler. Yeah, he's one of my best friends. So we used to just watch horror movies together all the time. So he had edited my short Cat Call. So it was nice to get to work with him. But yeah, then there was like a lot of people I hadn't worked with before. Like the production designer, it was her first feature film she ever did. She was only 23.
Wow.
time. Yeah, which is insane.
That's Lauren Kelly as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, Lauren. Yeah, she's brilliant. Yeah. So talented. Like, oh my God. When I was 23, I didn't know what I was doing. She was there like...
Couldn't put anything together. Lego, nothing like that, where she's like putting full sets off.
Yeah, but then you had like the composer, Dee Hexon. I hadn't worked with her before. I just thought that she'd be great for the film, and it was such a joy to kind of... There were so many relationships got to form that like with people that I hadn't worked with before, but they hadn't really done features before, but it was kind of like coming up together. So now we have this lovely relationship where it's like, you know, we all just feel really proud of the film because, you know, I think it was everyone's kind of baby in a way because people felt very passionately about it because it was, you know, it was a lot of people's first big thing that they'd done. So it's really nice in that way.
Yeah, it must be that. I love collaborating, especially with people you've just found or just met, and you know when you click and you're all on the same page and it works really well. Let's come back to You're Not My Mother. Let's talk about your journey to get there a little bit first, because that's something a lot of indie filmmakers want to know, is how you make the leap from short films, or how you make the leap from brand media or adverts or telly to making a feature film. And you've done it and you've smashed it out of the park with You're Not My Mother. You know, it's a great release you're getting, great reviews. And that's really, really lovely to hear. But people want to know how you do it. It's not like you just tick a box, oh, you've got to do that and do it. But I suppose people want to know your journey. So yeah, it'd be really interesting for you to talk us through. Were you always interested in film as a kid? Was that was vibe? Was there any films that really stood out for you?
Yeah, I think it was always something that was a big passion of mine. Like, I think I was raised by my mum and we lived with my granny for a while, and they both were big cinephiles. Like, they loved films, and my granny had like a real encyclopedic knowledge of like old Hollywood, and we watched a lot of kind of classic movies together, like Rebecca or Gone with the Wind or Night of the Hunter, like stuff like that. She was like really into kind of the, you know, brilliant films of her era. So that was a great education. And then my mom, she was really just into films as well. So she would be renting kind of the like great movies of the like the 90s when I was growing up, like kind of, you know, all those kind of thrillers and fun stuff. So I think, you know, it was a great education altogether. And then I think I just got the bug and I started getting Empire magazine, and I was just kind of like reading all about different, you know, sets and seeing behind the scenes photos, and I was all really kind of like alluring. And yeah, then I got just took to it. I think it was something that I just got in my head that I wanted to do. And then I went to film school when I left school, which was kind of the big film school in Ireland, which is when I graduated from school anyway, it was kind of one of the only places you could go to do film as a degree. So I did that, and then it's just kind of from there. So then I worked in an ad agency for a while as an intern. I edited videos for people as nixers for a while. I worked in the art department as a trainee on commercials and feature films, and so I've kind of done like many different jobs over the years. I think, you know, it's definitely not a straightforward path to kind of like, you do a short and then people like it and then you get to do your feature. I think like I did lots of odd jobs for lots of different kind of people, and I think that really helped in kind of making contacts and you know, getting to know people, getting to work on sets, seeing other directors working and how that works. So I think, you know, it was a winding road, but eventually got here. Yeah. So I did a Screen Ireland funded short called Catcalls, which was did quite well at the kind of genre film festivals, and that was funded by Screen Ireland. So that had a kind of a good budget behind it as a short. And then Screen Ireland knew me from that. So then it was kind of, we did You're Not My Mother to like, they fully financed that on this kind of POV scheme, which is kind of like iFeatures in the UK, I suppose. It's like for first time filmmakers. So yeah, it was kind of just getting to know those people, and kind of, you know, a lot of it I feel like is fortuitous timing, just having the right ideas at the right times to show the right people. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of can be difficult. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes it is just things like that come along, like the POV scheme that we made You Are Not My Mother on. I had just finished the festival run of Catcalls, and then Screen Ireland were like, we're doing this scheme for first time feature writer directors. We feel like it'd be good timing for you. And I was like, okay, I have an idea that could be done on this micro budget. Let's put it in for the application. So I think, you know, stuff like that, it just, like I heard about the scheme and 3 weeks later the application had to be in. So it was like kind of, okay, we're doing this kind of thing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. That is good timing. Yeah, that's like, we think this might be good timing for. Yes, this is perfect timing for me. Thank you very much. Well, let's talk about the shorts just before that then, because you'd made a few shorts. But like you said, you'd done art directing on other people's films or projects. But yet that hanker was, I want to direct, but you saw other people direct. Is that kind of where you went, no, I'm going to push through to make some shorts? Or was that part of your training, if you like?
I always had it in my head. I was like, I always wrote stuff and I always was writing and I always wanted to direct. And, you know, when I first left the ad agency I worked at, I made a short film called Little Doll, because I was at Berlinale Talents with a short film script called Little Doll that then I developed there. And then we made it for like €3,000 on an Indiegogo Kickstarter kind of campaign. And then that film got into Berlinale. So it was like kind of, but in that time while I was making that film, because we made it for nothing. So I needed to work because I'd left my job in the ad agency. So I was like, what can I do? I can edit videos, I can work art department, because I kind of had done a bit of that in college, like training and stuff like that. So I just then, started throwing my hat into like work on a lot of commercials as, you know, art department to standby props on stuff and training on some bigger stuff as well. So it was like, it was just kind of out of necessity to work, and I had done it before and I knew some people who would give me the work to do. But then it was like also a really great lesson, because, you know, there was some, even on a commercial like this, like they obviously have massive budgets and sometimes lots of interesting toys to play with and that kind of stuff. And like just seeing directors do some of the things they did on those, like really taught me, you know, how to kind of do some of those bigger set pieces and that kind of stuff, and how they put things together and technically how to do things, how those directors work with actors. I know obviously when you're art department, you're usually running around like a headless chicken trying to get the next set done. But
yeah, sadly.
Sometimes you do get to be on set when they're actually filming, and it was kind of invaluable to see all that. And then also be working on my own stuff to want to write and direct too.
That fascinating time when you're on other people's sets. And like you say, you can be running around like a headless chicken on, you know, when you're art directing, especially when it's quick, no, quick, this isn't right, run in. You sometimes don't get to see, but you do get to see. You really do get to witness what's actually happening on a set, how the lighting is set up, how long that takes, how the relationship is with the director and DP, how they work with the actors when they bring them in, the timing of everything. You know, the first AD moving around. So as you as an art director, or if it's standby props, you see so much. So it must have been a really great breeding ground for you. I think that's a really great way in for directors to see things and go, okay, I'm watching and learning from what other people do. When you first start to work with actors, you know, with Little Doll and other shorts like that, how did you find that? So obviously working with DPs, I imagine you were brilliant with, and how was it working with actors for you the sort of first time that happened?
Yeah, I think, you know, it was interesting because the first couple of shorts I did were actually had kids in them, so there was not that many adults in the films at all. So Little Doll was kind of all girls between I'm gonna say 8 and 10. I love working with kids, like and whenever I get to work with kids I really enjoy it, because I think they're so they just don't mince their words. So like if they're like, if you explain something to them and you're like, this is what we're gonna do, and they're like, I don't know what you mean. And you're just like, oh, okay, I need to explain that better to you. And I think that actually is a good education as a director. Because I think sometimes adult actors, won't always tell you when they don't understand something that you say.
Yes, you're so right.
Yeah, so I think like kids are great in that way, because they kind of gave me an education of like, oh, maybe sometimes you need to explain things in a way that is more understandable to somebody that hasn't got that image in their mind. So that was a good one. Yeah,
I like that, being clear. It's so true. As soon as you work with kids, they'll literally go, what do you mean? And like, it's not, adults will kind of, sometimes they don't want to feel stupid or question the director. So they'll go, okay, cool, going, I have no idea what that was. You think you knew what they meant, and they might have gone and taken something away. But a kid will just go, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
In my first feature I shot in Bulgaria, so I was working with a lot of Bulgarian crew, and I realised how unclear I was very quickly. When you wanted a yellow shirt or whatever, you had to literally explain what you can't go, yeah, it's kind of a yellowy, no, it's being clear. And I think that served me so much moving forward. I'm still learning, of course, and I think working with kids, exactly that. They'll question you, they'll go, what do you mean? And you, shit, what do I mean? I now need to really quantify what I'm talking about. And that must have been, like you say, what a great learning curve to then when you're working with adults to go, okay, I'll be as clear as I was. Maybe not so much, but just adults, they need it just as clear too, especially actors when it's all going through their head and they're in the moment and they're going, well, no, what do you want from it? What do you mean? Why am I changing this? What's going on? So that's great. What else did you learn on Little Doll then? And obviously moving into Catcalls as well, that prepared you for making You're Not My Mother?
Yeah, well, I think, Little Doll was kind of, again, that was something that we made for literally €3,000. So
yeah,
it was
exactly.
we did, again, that was like a thing where we didn't have very much. It was shot very much with friends, with, we shot in the producer's house. We shot, all this kind of stuff. So we didn't have a lot to work with. So it was, I think, because that's my kind of background, that like Little Doll, and then also music videos that I've directed. A lot of the time there's no money. So you're just kind of like trying to work with what you have. So I think that element was very helpful for You're Not My Mother, because I wasn't coming in as somebody who was like, what do you mean we can't have tracks? Because I was like, I've rarely ever had anything fancy on my set.
Just a camera.
Yeah, so I know how to use it in a way that I can get what I need with it. Do you know what I mean? So that was kind of helpful. But then Catcalls was quite a big budget for a short. So that was like €40,000.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was like properly big budget, because it was on the Screen Ireland scheme called Focus Shorts, which is to kind of allow you to make a short with a proper budget.
How did that happen? Because that's really interesting.
It was basically that. So Little Doll, it played at Berlinale in 2016. And then I think we were the only Irish film at Berlinale that year. So Screen Ireland are always at Berlinale, like in attendance to have their booth and stuff. So I think a few people were like, oh, did you see this Irish short that is here? And I think they didn't know who I was before that. Then this was kind of like their first introduction, was like, oh, this young filmmaker made a film with no money and it's at Berlinale. We should kind of see who this person is.
Yeah, should pay attention. Damn right.
So that was, really, that was a great step for me. And then I think it was the following year in 2017 that they had that I knew there was a focus short. Actually, it was probably at the end of 2016 maybe, but it was like I knew the focus short scheme was coming up. And, in college they had really turned us off horror, but I still really wanted to do horror. It was something that was like my, a genre that I love very much, and I watch probably the most of any other genre. So Little Doll was a drama film, which was kind of made to be that kind of like, to hopefully get into one of those prestige festivals to get attention. So I that was my intention with it, was that hopefully it would garner some attention at a festival like that, which it did work out in the end. But it was like, then I was like, okay, now I feel like I need to make my horror film that I've been wanting to make. So I had this like idea that I thought would work, and it was quite a tight idea that it was around like 10 minutes, and that was the focus short time limit. That was like, had to be something quite, couldn't be kind of over long. The scripts had to be 10 pages. So I had this idea. They knew me from Berlinale, so we went in with the application. And, I think just because this was like the short that I think I was ever like most excited about. And I think that just really showed then when we went in for the interview and the pitch to them, I think they just saw that it was something that I really wanted to do and I was really excited about. And they had knew I did Little Doll. So yeah, I think it just kind of, it worked out well at the time. It was just like they hadn't just knew I existed recently, and then they were like, oh, she's really passionate about this weird horror idea. They did not do a lot of horror, so I was a little bit worried about that, but I think they had just shifted and changed. They had changed a few project managers in there, and there was a kind of a new group that were kind of more into genre and stuff like that. So I was just lucky in that way as well, that they were interested in it. So then Catcalls we got the funding for, which we shot that in 2017, I think. Yeah, it was brilliant, because that was like, you had actually money to do things with.
Do things, right? Not just a camera. You'll actually, 40 grand's a nice amount for short, but it can disappear quite quickly.
Oh, yeah.
Suddenly
it goes quick. Yeah,
you think you've got, and then suddenly you've got a big crew and everyone needs paying, etc. And suddenly it changes. You're like, oh, actually we haven't. And that Steadicam shot I wanted, you can only have it for one day. What? We've got 40 grand. How did you plan it then? Because obviously now, like say before with your first short, one of your first shots, you were kind of you and a camera. Now you're going, oh, I can play. Well, how did you go, oh, I want to think outside the box here and with certain camera moves? What's your process in trying to think why I want to use a camera move or why I want to use dolly or why I want to use Steadicam? Do you have an idea there early on?
Yeah, I think I'm not the kind of filmmaker that like has an urge to use fancy equipment or do things just for the gimmick of doing the shot or the trick. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like for me, it always has to serve what you're trying to do. And I think with Catcalls, what I wanted to do was just prove that I could scare people and make something that was frightening as a short film. So, me and the editor who edited my feature film as well, me and him, we watched lots of horror movies, and I would take scenes from horror movies and break them down on how jump scares work and how they put them together, and some of my favorite films, what kind of worked and what didn't. And I think, so it was all just kind of serving that purpose. So it wasn't ever kind of, the Steadicam following your man around the house when he's like walking around and it's quite tense and you're waiting for something to kind of jump out at him. That was just all built to be frightening, and it wasn't kind of like to try and do anything too crazy. So we just kind of let it serve it in that way. Yeah, no, it's really important to think like that, and it's really nice that you were already going, right, okay, let me watch other films and connect that to what I'm doing and sit there with your DP or editor, and I think that's great, and that really does make a big difference. And like you say, then moving on straight away from Catcalls, which again I imagine did really well for you, and obviously got like ridiculously well by the looks of things. Was it you pushing it for the festivals? Obviously you had a big team behind you and a budget at this point, but were you the one who was saying, no, I'd like to go to this festival, or were they planning the sort of how the release of Catcalls would work for you as a short? Oh yeah, Catcalls was all me. It was like, because unfortunately the producer, she was a great producer of Catcalls, but she shortly after Catcalls decided she just didn't want to work in film anymore. Timing. I know, yeah. Oh. I know. It wasn't because of the film, hopefully. So she kind of left the project. So I was kind of left to my own devices in terms of what I wanted to do with the festival thing. So any festival submissions I did myself, and I paid for myself, and wow. So I kind of engineered the festival run for Catcalls because I knew the big genre festival. So we got into Fantasia, which is in Montreal, which is a big horror festival, which is July. So that would have been July 2018, probably. That was a real gateway into everything else, because once it had played at Fantasia, all the other genre festivals saw that it was, it was in a popular section called Born of Woman at Fantasia. So that was like a very well attended section of the festival for shorts anyway. So it was actually kind of surreal. So it was like they played at Fantasia, which was like our first big festival in a good few months. I kind of thought the film wasn't going to go anywhere, because we played at like the Cork Film Festival in November 2017. And then there was literally months where we didn't get into any other festivals. Right. Like even small Irish festivals didn't really want to film. And I was like, God, is this film terrible? Like, what's going on? You start to question. Why is no one taking it? Right? Yeah. It's weird. I know. It was kind of disheartening. So I was worried. And then we got into Fantasia, Born of Woman, and I was so excited. Then I didn't get to attend because I think I was working on something else, like a commercial or something like that. So I couldn't go. And then I started getting emails the next day after the screening from like US managers and stuff that were like, we want to represent you. And I started getting emails from like random producers in like America and Hollywood and studios and stuff being like, we loved your short. And like, I was like, I honestly, like the first few, I was like, okay, I'm being pranked. This is some sort of elaborate prank. So it was like, that festival was really like amazing for me and for the film as well. And then all the other genre festivals, like, Fantastic Fest, Sitges, some of the kind of next tier ones like Fright Fest and you know, Morbido in Mexico and like all those kind of ones, like they all picked up the film then after that and they played at all those ones and it had a great festival life at the genre festivals then that year. And then, yeah, I got a manager, I got an agent off the back of that. And
that's brilliant.
Yeah, it was just kind of like surreal. Do you know what I mean? You're just like, this little 10-minute film that I made is like now gotten me all these things, which is quite bizarre. But so that was a great, Catcalls was great for me. And I think I have a real love of Catcalls because I feel like it just did so much for me. And I think, you know, it's still a fun little short as well. It's on YouTube for anyone who wants to watch it.
Cool. We'll put a link to that in the show notes. Definitely watch it. It's so much fun. I think that's what, and it's telling about your filmmaking as well, is that you really do think about the genre and the audience. It feels that way anyway, about what you want to make, and you've got your voice on it. And that must have been really important with sort of going into You Are Not My Mother. Did you really, again, sticking in the same genre, you were like, look, I want to make my horror feature, and Catcalls is the perfect calling card for that. Was that an easier sell when you were trying to get your feature off the ground, to say, look, Catcalls has done really well. Look, I can do this as a feature. Did you find some resistance to the fact that, hey, you've only made a short and okay, it did well, but can you really do a feature? Or was it the other side where people go, no, we want to give you the chance? Well,
yeah, it was an interesting one because like You Are Not My Mother, the scheme that was on, that was kind of like Screen Ireland really wanted me to do that, I think, in a way. Like they were, they knew that I was just the right kind of level to do that scheme, to get to this next level of doing the feature. So Screen Ireland side, and that, you know, that kind of the producers who wanted to make You Are Not My Mother within this scheme with Screen Ireland, they were all very much like, we 100% know you can do this. Like, we're very happy for you to do this. But I think, you know, before that scheme popped up, so there was a time between when Catcalls was kind of out and did the festival run, and I was waiting and kind of, you know, I went to LA even to do like a week of meetings at the start of 2019. And, you know, I think there is a resistance to like how you have one short and people are still hesitant to kind of like trust you with a bigger budget and trust you with something bigger. I did even a couple of interviews for like some TV directing jobs, and then those were kind of like, we love you and we think you're great, but like, we don't know that you can do something long form. So unfortunately, we're going to have to say no. So like there was a lot of that kind of stuff.
And that's what's so frustrating about filmmakers when they've made a brilliant short and they're like, look, this is my calling card. And which everyone says is your calling card. Go make a great short, be your calling card. And then it's a calling card, but it's a card. So yeah, that must have been insanely frustrating for you to do that. And they're all going, we love you, but...
Yeah, I think you kind of... I'm always the kind of person who... I never get why... Maybe I'm just like very skeptical. I'm very like cynical kind of person. So like even like doing the meetings when I was in LA and stuff, you kind of go like, well, I know this isn't really going to amount to anything. I think it's to like not get my hopes up. Maybe it's like a defense mechanism, but I think you kind of know that it's more for them to get a sense of you and meet you and get to know you. And then I think then they feel like, you know, it is really frustrating though, I think, as a filmmaker, like with anything you're trying to get into, like, you know, I've even seen people with commercials and it's like, well, you've done music videos, but can you do a commercial? And it's like, how is that any different? Like, do you know what I mean? Like they're very similar kind of formats of how to do something. And like, I think people can be, until you've proven, like, I think in commercial world, it's like the funniest kind though. Cause like people will literally be like, well, have you filmed a queue before in a commercial that you've done? And you're like, no, but I think I've got it. I've been in a queue a few times. So I kind of, you know, it's really funny. So, you know, I think I had been in commercials and done a bit of commercial work. So I think commercials really set you up for just that kind of mentality. The mentality. So it's like, it's really funny, but you kind of just get used to it. But then, I was really lucky then that kind of Screen Ireland had this thing and they were like, we want you to make a feature. So then I wasn't kind of like waiting around to hear back from kind of whoever it might be. And you know, I knew I could just get that first feature done. And then that would stand to me really well, that I could just like then hopefully do something bigger. Because I knew the budget was going to be quite punishing, but it was like, but then I'll have this feature film that I've done and I've made, and it will stand to me in a way that like the shorts maybe sometimes just aren't the same kind of thing, you know.
With that and on that, how did it feel, the difference between making short and making the long form, You're Not My Mother, for you as a director? What was the process in your mind? What was the stamina you needed to push on through? And do you think when people say that, you know, hey, you're a short filmmaker, but hey, until you've made a feature, we don't think you can make a feature or a TV series, do you think that holds up now you've done it?
I think it's actually, you know, in a weird way, I found the feature to be almost less stressful than like when you're doing a short or a music video or a commercial, because you've got so little time to prepare when you're doing those more short form things. And like, often you don't have a lot of time to actually shoot them or do them. And I found like one thing I loved on the feature was that you can, you know, when you start, obviously your first day is really nerve wracking and terrifying and you're like absolutely, you know, bricking it that you're going to totally mess it up. But I think once you're like a week or two into the shoot, it all feels like everyone knows each other. You've got a real dialogue with everybody, the actors, the heads of department. You're in a set that's dressed pretty much ready to go, so you're not kind of rushing around to try and get things done. You have time to actually get your shots. And then, you know, as you're kind of working through the shoot, we were giving the footage to the editor and he was putting up together selects and stuff like that. So he, you know, was very helpful in like letting us know like what you might need if he was like, oh, you might need a couple of extra shots for this scene, just a cutaway of her hand or something like that, or you know. So then we could go, okay, well, we can get that because we're going back to this room where we shot that scene. So, you know, I found that element of it really enjoyable because I was like, oh, we're gonna actually have everything that we need to make the scenes, to, you know, to put everything together, which was you know, which on shorter stuff, you know, you're just like, well, if you didn't get it, you didn't get it.
Didn't get it. I think that's great. And I think that is the attitude. It's true. You know, if you can make a great short, you can make a great feature. Of course you can. It's not an issue. And this whole thing around it, the stigma around it is disappointing. I get it because maybe some people can't, you know, jump from a short to a feature. It is difficult. But actually the mindset of someone who is making stuff all the time, it is just getting on with it. It's day to day. How did you think about your shots then? How did you think about how you're going to plan everything in terms of what was in your head? Because there's a lot of questions people ask you when you're making a film. How did you manage that? And what was your process to stay in the moment and stay focused on the overall goal?
Yeah, I think, you know, we did a lot of prep in terms of just like how we were going to shoot everything, because we knew we didn't have a lot to work with in terms of equipment or lighting packages or, you know, even the spaces, because we couldn't build sets. We had to use whatever, like, you know, exterior locations or interior locations. They were just what was there. And even though we had like a great production design team, like we didn't always have everything in that department either. So it was like, you know, it was we kind of had to meticulously plan. So me and the DOP, we kind of photo storyboarded almost every scene, I'm going to say, roughly, kind of with an idea of where things were going to be, because we knew as well for the timing wise of like the time of like how much we had to shoot scenes. Like the first AD was really involved in that as well in prep, just kind of like, look, you're going to have roughly this many hours to shoot this scene. So we knew we couldn't be on the day kind of going like, oh, why don't we try over here? Or why don't we move this over here and give this a try? Because we just didn't have the kind of luxury to do that. So we had almost every scene planned out. And then obviously with the actors, the shots often had a lot of wiggle room, so that if the actors did want to move around, or if they did want to kind of, you know, or at certain scenes like the dance scene, which happens in the middle of the film, that was very much like I went to the house with Carolyn. She showed me, we kind of blocked out her dance and she showed me where she was going to want to be. And then I would go, okay, that might be a bit hard for the camera to get to. Why don't you just stop here and then bring it back here? And then we kind of choreographed that together. I filmed it, showed the DOP. He did 360 lighting that day. So that like, we weren't lighting for each shot. We were just like had a lit room and that was it. Brilliant. And then we just like shot it. Cause you know, a lot of the, like, we just didn't have the time to like do a whole new lighting setup in a scene sometimes. So we had to do things in a very pre-planned way in that way, just to make sure that we weren't going to run out of time or not be able to get all the shots we needed for a scene. So it was, quite well planned in that way. And even the jump scare scenes, like the kind of, some of the jump scares or some of the kind of scary scenes, like I shot them with my girlfriend in my house on like my phone, sent them to the editor. He would test them to see if they were kind of working as a scare, if the tension was right. So we did a lot of pre-planning in that way. So that was kind of everything. When we got on set, we kind of knew exactly where the camera was going to be for each shot. And, you know, we had a Google Drive with everything in it. So everyone kind of knew, the production designer knew. So then when she was dressing a scene, she knew that like maybe this height of the room would never be seen. So she didn't necessarily need to look at that. And so, yeah, we just kind of did that used as much prep as we could to just like get it really clear for everybody.
I love that. It's so important, isn't it? Get it all in your head. So then on the day, you can change it, manipulate and go, okay, that's what we wanted, but there's something better, or the light's different now, or the actor does something slightly different. So you go, okay, you can manipulate, but as long as you're prepped, then you can do that. And it's, you know, it sounds like you massively were. Do you want to just give us a little pitch, a little small rundown of what the film is about, and then we can play the trailer? You Were Not My Mother is about a young girl named Char who lives with her mother and her grandmother. And then one day her mother goes missing after suffering silently kind of with mental health difficulties. So the family fear the worst when she disappears. But she comes back a day later, and then after she returns, her behaviour becomes increasingly strange and unusual, and Char begins to discover some family secrets which she never knew before. And it's set during the week of Halloween in North Dublin in Ireland. So it's a real Irish Halloween, the likes of which you might not have seen on screen before, and very much draws from Irish folklore, mythology, and it's very scary, intense.
We're still trying to figure out what happened. When did you last hear from her?
She left to bring her to school.
Is everything okay?
Has she gone missing before?
Not in a long time.
Mom? I heard about your mom. Is she all right?
Hey.
Doesn't feel right.
I think we should go away. Just the two of us.
I think you should take it easy at the moment.
Mom, where did you go?
I can't tell you. Not yet.
What's wrong with you?
There's things I need to tell you, Char. It's not your mother up there. If we don't do something, we'll never get her back. And then they'll try to take you.
Dance with me, Char.
Mom, stop! How is your mom?
Let's talk about the writing very quickly of it then, because, you know, going from writing shorts and coming up with ideas and putting them into a short format is really difficult, you know, to get the beginning, middle and end and get something that really works within a 10-minute around that mark area. How were you doing it with the feature then for this, for You Are Not My Mother? How were you going, okay, well, this is my idea, which is great. How did you then structure that into the right format to then, you know, end up with this brilliant film?
Yeah, it was, you know, the script didn't change massively, I'm going to say, like structurally. Like we kind of hit all the points, like a lot of the scenes, like the opening never changed from the first draft, that the, you know, grandmother brings the baby into the woods. You know, there's a few things that were in the DNA of the film from the very beginning. And then it just was kind of, you know, in the beginning, it wasn't set during Halloween. But then the more I researched about kind of folklore and Halloween time, or Samhain in Ireland was a time when it was believed like there was a real thin veil between the two worlds. So that was more kind of tomfoolery could happen between the two worlds, I suppose. So, you know, stuff like, and I love Halloween. So I was like, an excuse to put Halloween in a movie was couldn't say no. But yeah, I think, it was interesting. Like, we had a great experience with the script writing because it was all within that scheme with Screen Ireland POV. So we had a script editor assigned by them and called Anna Seifert Speck, and she's actually a UK-based script editor, and she was really helpful and kind of really got to the core themes and what I was trying to say with everything. And each scene then really tried to capture the theme that we were getting across as much as possible. So it was just like having every scene work for the film and work for the story and the characters. Just, yeah, she was a brilliant kind of guide in that way. But then, it's funny, like you get to a stage where like I was researching, I had the script editor, it was all coming together, and you have then all these kind of folkloric elements that I started to add in from the research I was doing and building in kind of the more mysticism of the whole thing. But then, we were in prep, and then it was like March 2020. We knew we weren't going to be able to shoot for a while because of COVID. So we had an idea we were going to shoot in November 2020. But we got some of the crew involved early because they were, they had nothing to do anyway. There was no shoots happening. So the first AD came on kind of early, a few months before we shot, and he said, okay, so the script is 106 pages, and we're going to have to shoot this in like 22 days. So he was like, I just feel like if you want to keep in big set pieces, like at the end of the film, there's a big Halloween bonfire, which we had to build, and it was actual fire and stuff like that. And he was like, if you want to do that, you're going to have to trim some other things in other places. So there was a moment where I had to kind of a few months before we shot the film, I did some work on the script where I brought it down from 106 pages to 96 pages.
It's quite a big chunk. Yeah.
So there was a lot more kind of explanation of things that are going on, like a bit more world building in terms of the folkloric elements, and those just got cut. But actually it was really interesting because when I look at the kind of the older script we have now and the edit of the final film, you kind of say like, oh, that stuff probably would have got cut out anyway. Do you know what I mean? Like it probably would have been trimmed. So it was almost like I actually sent the script to the editor at that point too, and I was like, what do you think about like this scene being cut out, or this stuff being cut out, or just cutting dialogue that wasn't necessary, or like just elements, like some bits that felt like they were just kind of adding to a scene that maybe just it was better said with less words. And we just kind of went through that process. The producer as well went through it as well. We just kind of went through the script over and over again, just looking for ways to tighten it up. So then when we went to shoot, like basically everything in the script you see in the final film, like there's not really much fat that was trimmed in the actual edit then, because I did a lot of that process when we were in the prep process as well.
That's brilliant and so important, and I love that you said that, and I love that you sent it to your editor beforehand, and that the first is going, look, let's trim this. I think that's really clever, because a lot of people don't. They go into it and go, no, my script's perfect, and who cares, it's 2 hours long. Yeah, the distributors will care. They're going to cut, they won't buy it, and that's so important to get the length right, especially for a horror. It's really important. So well done for doing that. I imagine you've already written other projects that you're going to do next. Is that what you took forward to in your next, when you're writing your next, thinking about the structure and gone through this now as a director of a feature film and done the whole edit and delivery process? Did you think about that moving forward with your next one?
Definitely, yeah. I think, there's, especially with horror, like sometimes you get these great ideas for set pieces and like you write them and you're like, oh, this is brilliant. It's so scary. It's like so fun. Or like, it's just like really enjoyable to like write those kind of scenes. But then, yeah, I think I have one script that I'm kind of I just did some revisions on recently. And a lot of the revisions were kind of going, okay, this is a cool image or a scene, or like, I feel like this is great, but why don't I just like take this out of this script, because it's not really bringing the action forward in this. And I'll save that and I'll put it in a film again some other time. I'll like find a way to like get some sort of that imagery into another film another time. So I think it's it's not necessarily like you don't feel like you're kind of killing your darlings. You're just like, okay, that idea is interesting, but it's not helping this film tell a story. So I'll save that for another in the future, and it will probably come up in some other way somewhere else, and you can kind of, that's a good way to like negotiate with yourself, to be like, it's not gone forever, it might be in another film another time. So yeah,
no, that's brilliant and so important. What have you learned from directing? Any tips from the directing side then for our listeners that you've go, okay, that worked for me or that didn't?
Yeah, I don't know, I think just like it's not necessarily a tip or like a trick or anything. I think just like having everything prepped as much as you can, so that you, especially if you're kind of working within time or budget limitations that are going to like be very difficult to work around, just make sure that you have a clear decision about everything that is going to happen. Because I think, as you know yourself, like as a director, like you get asked 100 questions a day, and people are like, well, what color should this sock be? And you're like, I need to know the answer to that, because I'm the only one who can say, yeah, of course, they have to be blue because that is the only color they can be. So I think just being clear with people and not kind of, time is of the essence, I think, a lot of the time. So your decisions, just you need to make decisions. And, sometimes you'll look back and you'll be like, oh, I wish I had done that differently. But do you know what? If you had kind of hummed and hawed and waited, it would have just cost you time, and you would have, you wouldn't be able to get all your coverage for the scene or whatever. So I think you kind of have to compromise with yourself in that way, just to kind of say, look, I'm making this decision. That's what we're doing. That's what we're shooting. Hopefully it will work out. And just like, and just kind of try to stick to your guns, because if you kind of waste time on set thinking about things, it never ends well. And then, I think with actors, I think one thing I really learned is just that I started a dialogue with all my actors really early. So I would talk to them a lot. And that was something that on shorts or, music videos, commercials, you don't really get to do. Because, it's kind of like almost the first time, you meet them on a commercial. Anyway, like it's kind of like on the day you're shooting. So, so I think just getting to like build that relationship. So I just call them to talk to them, ask them about their life. They're like, what are they doing? Like send them stuff to read or look at, or kind of just open a dialogue, so that then when we were on set, I feel like with all the actors, we had a lovely relationship where, they felt like they could be honest with me. So if they did feel like, I don't really feel like this is right, then we could talk about it in a way that like nobody felt like they were kind of stepping on anyone's toes. And it was a really nice kind of open relationship where we could kind of just say like, oh yeah, no, I think this, or no, I see what you're doing here. Okay, that makes sense. And, we could kind of talk it through in a very relaxed way, so it wasn't like loaded or kind of stressful or anything like that. So I think just building that relationship early with actors, just to try and like make sure that then on set you feel very relaxed around them, so you're not kind of tiptoeing or trying to be polite, or do you know what I mean? Because I think to get performances that are authentic and genuine, you need to kind of have that trust between each other to kind of go, no, this is, don't worry, you can go there, or you can do this, and like it's not gonna, they need to trust you really. So you kind of have to build that as early as possible, I think. Yeah.
And the same with your DP as well, the same relationship and on set, tiny bit about that would be really interesting.
Yeah, I think, with Narian, he's a really lovely person to work with, because he's very quiet, kind of, when in prep, sometimes I was like early on in prep, not like as we kind of got closer, but he was one of the very first HODs we got involved in. And I always was kind of like, is he listening to me? Like, I don't know, because he like never really speaks that much. He's a very quiet person, very kind of shy, like internal, like thinking about things all the time. But then as we got closer, he did this beautiful like lookbook of images, and you could see that he totally got it, and he totally understood what I wanted to go for with the style. And then as we talked more back and forth, and we started blocking out the scenes and photo storyboarding, and you could just tell that he kind of knew, it felt like then, like if he made a decision about a shot that like I couldn't make, or like I wasn't sure, I knew that he would be an extension of what I wanted to do. Do you know what I mean? So it felt very, a lot of trust there too. So, if you're kind of like, he's like, I think this is what we should do, I would be like, okay, yeah, I think that will work. Do you know what I mean? So it was like, it was great in that way that he, he's a great person to work with, very talented as well, very I can't believe kind of some of the images like he achieved with like how little we had.
Yeah, I love that. And it sounds brilliant. It sounds exactly right. You collaborated in the right ways. It sounds brilliant. You can hear sometimes when people are talented. It's a really weird thing, but you know what I mean? The way you talk, the way you're discussing things, well done. And You're Not My Mother is out now. Link to that is in the show notes. Do go watch this ace film. This has been so much fun. Kate, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It was such a lovely chat. Very relaxed. Yeah, really enjoyed it.
Brilliant. Remember, you can go out there and make your film. You can make your TV series. You can make whatever you want to make. You can make it happen. Do it. Believe in yourself. And if you're lucky enough to rise up and do well, it is your duty to send the elevator back down. We will see you next Tuesday. As always, thank you so much for listening. We really, really appreciate it. A massive shout out to Kate Dolan. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks. That's amazing. Thanks.
Pleasure.
Awesome.